Welcome to today's webinar program, Invoice Data Capture, Key to AP Automation, brought to you by the Accounts Payable Network and Koufax. My name is Jessica, and I'll be your conference moderator for today's program. During today's 60-minute program, you'll be in a listen-only mode. Should you have a question at any time, please enter your question in the chat box on the left side of your screen and send. If you should have any technical problems, please press *0 on your telephone keypad and an operator will assist you. Please remember that it is a violation of copyright laws to record the conference. Attendees seeking CPE credit for this webinar, please pay careful attention to the screen. We will be displaying 5 special codes. Please type those codes into the entry field of the pop-up messages. You will need to type all 5 codes to qualify for CPE credit. If you require the CEU credit, please disregard the codes. And now let me introduce today's speakers. David Hay, consultant, former director of shared service at Hewlett-Packard Company, a former international banker. David has more than 35 years of experience in the financial and e-commerce industries. Dermot Macaulay is vice president of solutions product marketing at Koufax. He is responsible for bringing to market industry solutions based on the Koufax portfolio of software products and services. And before we begin, we do have a polling question for everyone. One moment. And on your screen, we do have a polling question. It reads, what percentage have data extracted rather than rekeyed? And your options are none, 30%, 50%, or 80%. And we'll give you a few moments to answer the polling question. I'm sorry, this is percentage of invoices. And we'll just give it a few more seconds. Okay, and the results are in. We have 37% saying none, 39% saying 30%, 17% saying 50%, and 6% saying 80%. All right, and David, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the conference. Sorry about the slight delay here. It's technical issues. Sorry about that. Accounts payable is an area in transition in a big way. What was once a paper-based just pay the bill operation is evolving into a lower cost, more efficient process that provides greater visibility and control. In this presentation this afternoon, I'm going to be quoting from a number of study questions or survey questions in the area of paper and data capture. Each year, the Accounts Payable Network goes out and surveys its client base. In this study, 549 organizations with sales ranging from $1 million to $100 billion. We will be talking a little bit about the breakout of the size and industries, with manufacturing being the largest, finance, insurance, etc., etc. The first chart I would like to show is the key concerns of AP. This is going out to the AP managers and asking them, what keeps them awake at night. And of course, number 1 on the list is improving process and reducing errors, and automation. Interesting to note down at the bottom is something I'll come back to in a little bit, but the visibility for cash management and spend analysis. These are also critical issues that sometimes I feel are underappreciated, if you will. One of the, and in a way I say unfortunate results of the study is the low level of total automation in companies. Only 15% of companies are highly automated. The bulk have some automation, but not highly automated. The ones that are those at the very largest, the huge retailers and manufacturers who gain the most benefit from this automation. The direction is clear. The high volumes of the big players demand efficient operation. So yes, they are the ones that have led in EDI, in all of the necessary processes. And in many cases in the past, they've had the resources to solve the problem. So what's happening with the rest? Well, many companies have automated only a few processes. Some may have put in workflow, some scanning, some e-invoicing. In the area of scanning, many companies are still doing it at the back end instead of scanning at the very front end. In many, the manual process is still manual. In some cases, an image is used instead of the paper. Unfortunately, in many other cases, paper is still being passed around the organization. And unfortunately, in these cases, little or no use of an automatic workflow or automated matching. So, to get back, automation is absolutely the key enabler. Process improvements might target such tactical goals as the number one on the original study, which was reducing errors, getting better paid-on-time rates. But there are steps towards more strategic goals that AP should take into consideration. Cost savings for most companies are a key driver, but real-time information in support of better cash management, discount capture, and in the reduction of the cost of goods sold through spend data are becoming more and more critical in talking to AP. And by the way, these last issues are the highest in surveys of CFOs. So the businesses are driving for greater efficiency and greater information as well as cost cutting. Okay, let's have a look at paper invoices and the effect they have on the FTEs. For example, in an early study, 18% of organizations received 100% of invoices in paper, compared to about 14% today. So there is an improvement, but it is still, 5 years down the road, not a great one. And a figure that has hardly changed in years is across all participants, 80% of invoices are still received on paper. One comment on the study, by the way, is very large organizations are underrepresented in the study in comparison to other benchmark studies. So this year when we did it, it was medium and sort of normal large clients, not the very large ones. We also feel that that's partly because many of the big ones don't respond anymore. They've done it. Okay, received by paper. As this shows, the smaller the organization in number of employees, the greater the percentage, with the smallest at 87. But what is a little disconcerting, even those with 10,000 and above are still receiving close to 50% of the invoices in paper. One problem that many companies face is a many-to-many dilemma. You have multiple suppliers and multiple buyers. Each one of us is dealing on both sides of the coin with both buyers and sellers. So it makes it difficult to come up with a single solution that all of the parties can play into. I'd also like to point out that even within a single organization, this is the case, where multiple suppliers are dealing with multiple buyers in the same organization or multiple requesters, and there's no visibility or control into the flow of that paper. Okay, other from the study, invoice processing. The median organization keys 100% of the paper invoices. And in paper here, I also include the PDF invoices that come in often as an attached email. Comes in electronically, it's then printed out and rekeyed. When organizations do receive paper PDR, very few organizations actually get them input on the same day. Only 14% can receive these and actually process them. The most common cycle time from input into the AP system to ready to pay is between 4 to 7 days for both PO and non-PO. I'm going to stress here that that is from the time it is received at AP, not received in the mailroom. In fact, many organizations where the invoices go to requesters and buyers, that time frame becomes anything from 20 to 40 days. When looking at automation, the key is the workflow engine. But of course, a workflow engine requires that invoices be in an electronic format. So the critical first step is to get the invoice data in system-compatible electronic format. The best place would be to avoid paper in the first place, although all considering that, in fact, most invoices that we receive as paper have actually started as electronic documents, are printed, mailed, and rekeyed back into the system.
I know that I sent her the...
Yeah, I saw that, and I also sent her a little...
I called her yesterday before, and I left her a voicemail.
Sorry about that. Don't know what that was. Unfortunately, suppliers have many customers and buyers and many vendors, all using different ERP systems. So here is a workflow diagram of what the ultimate system has. We need to bring in data in many formats. It will come in as paper, it will come in electronically as EDI type or XML type documents. It can come in through a portal. Many companies today offer portal access, or it can come in as faxed or scanned images and then into the system and processed. And the critical thing is to automate as much of that process as possible. So we're looking at bringing in not only the invoices, but the POs, receiving information, so the workflow engine can totally match with no human intervention at all. Okay, let's step back and look at the very front of the process. For many companies, scanning and OCR are becoming more common. More than 50% of organizations scan the paper invoices coming in. But of that 50%, only 36%, or 18% of total, use optical character recognition to automatically capture the invoice data. The OCR will extract the data and put it in a format that can be matched or handled electronically. For participants that do use OCR, the medium organization uses it to scan 80% of their total invoice volumes. Now, 47% of OCR users report the technology's accuracy is 90% or greater. That is one thing. Many of us think of OCR as being very inaccurate, but over the last few years, the accuracy rate has gone up extensively. 4/5 of all organizations that scan paper store the physical documents for some period of time before destroying them, with the average being 3 years. Now, of course, that depends where you're located, but the best practice is actually anything from 30 to 90 days. If you've got it stored correctly electronically, there's no need to be paying for warehousing of paper documents. So where do vendors send the invoices? I alluded to this a little bit earlier in the presentation. Directly to AP is 40%. That is by far the best practice. No invoice should be sent to a buyer or requester, should be sent directly to AP. That also assumes the other best practice, that AP has a shared service or centralized AP operation within the business. The smallest percentage of invoices go to the business units, and for most companies, there's a mix between AP and purchasers. Quite often, direct material may go to AP, indirect to the purchaser, but it's still a best practice to send everything to AP. Vendors create a number of problems when they send invoices to the purchaser rather than to AP. A critical one for old finance guys like me is that invoice is not accrued for. Nobody knows it exists when it hits AP, and quite often that can be many days after it was received. One of the problems that stem from that is duplicate invoices and duplicate payment. This is quite common. An invoice is sent to the requester. It's sitting on somebody's desk. They phone in. It gets transferred to AP. AP asks for a copy of the invoice, which may be faxed in. It's paid. The original one turns up, and if there are not good controls, that invoice is paid twice. By the way, one of the consulting firms said that during that process, 7% of all invoices actually never make it to AP and are lost altogether. Okay, invoices sent to purchase increase processing time. In fact, I talked to one major company that simply the delay in utility and telco bills alone was costing them $1.5 million a month in excess payments. Okay, so how long does it take an invoice to reach AP? The most efficient companies are 1, 2, 3, 4 days. But if you notice a great deal, say 5 or more, and that 5 is way more than 5 for the median companies. Quite often it is in the anything, as I mentioned, 20 to 40 days. One study said the median was 15 days. By the way, if your goal is discount capture, that kind of eliminates that. So the best way to solve these problems is to eliminate it at the door before it enters AP. Most companies are now beginning to use imaging systems. Once the paper is scanned, AP can work with the electronic image rather than paper. And this is really good, particularly to workflow, where an image can be immediately sent out for approval for cost center, GL code coding, etc. And the document can be indexed, entered into the system, and available for matching with receipts or against POs, etc. So, looking again at the study, 56% of all companies are imaging paper, but still 44% are not. Although the numbers are shifting down, AP departments still handle way too much paper. Through a best practice and mature automated technologies, opportunities exist to reduce or remove paper and its associated manual processes. Early I talked about the fact that only the very large companies like General Electric, where I worked for a number of years, we had the money and the expertise to build the systems. Today, through companies such as Koufax and others, there are many opportunities for smaller companies to get all the benefits of the large ones without the outlay. One trend, many companies have centralized AP. The next trick is to make sure all vendors to direct invoices to AP. Removing paper, of course, reduces manual tax, lowers cost per transaction, and frees up resources for more strategic value-added tax. Reduce manual tax, decrease cycle times, allowed for discount capture. At the Tappan conference just last week, I asked an audience in one of my presentations, what their number one goal was in automation and AP, and a number of the people in the audience said discount capture was number one. Another very large percentage, and in fact something that's gaining more and more interest, is the ability for AP to supply the information to purchasing on spend. Spend analysis has become critical in helping increase margins within the corporation. And in fact, if you're ever faced with budgeting for automation, the easiest way and the fastest way to recover money is point out that the information automation gives you will allow the buyers to reduce their spend considerably. Over and above that, with SOX and OFAC and coming up the new factor organizations, critical thing to upper management is the information needed to run the business and to manage cash flow. So although our, in AP we're often looking at cost per invoice or cost per transaction, the information given to upper management can be of tremendous value. Okay, key to getting electronic data extraction, of course, is to move the invoice process to the front end. Manual paper routing is totally eliminated. Invoices can be routed electronically for review and approval and coding. And by the way, when you're doing this, when you're beginning to move into electronic, look at different techniques. For instance, one that's proved very successful is to move to a series of assumed or negative approval. I used to be on the receiving end of this at Hewlett-Packard. An invoice comes in, it's sent to me for approval. If I ignore it, it's automatically approved after 3 days. And then they do the back-end audit. That really speeds up the process. It allows discount invoices to be processed quickly and eliminates any chances of overdue payments or late payments. If the PO is there, of course, all the data can be added automatically to the invoice. The ability to extract data, not just capture the image, is, of course, the real key to automating AP. No matter how we get it, whether it comes faxed or scanned, that data still has to be entered into the system. So in many ways, just working with a pure scan document only has eliminated the mail time. You're still operating with an image. So extracting data becomes critical. And two ways of doing that, of course, as we've mentioned, are OCR and ICR. Leading solutions have overcome early limitations. OCR, by the way, has a very long history and is one of the earliest techniques. It was initially designed, actually, to read books for the blind. One of the better, with the more modern techniques, is the ability to learn over time. OCR equipment can now learn. It learns the position on the invoice from a supplier of where the invoice number is, where the PO number is, etc., which over time speeds the process up dramatically. And I have talked to companies that are achieving over 90% accuracy. So the ability to extract data, not just capture it, is the real key to automating AP. Okay, and let's have a brief look at the kind of data we need to extract. Well, right off the bat, you want the PO number and the date. If you have the PO data, you have most of the other data available. You need the invoice number. In there, you've got the totals, the subtotals. You may have taxes. You may have shipping, discount, the grand total, all of the supplier details, name, ID, number, remit to, currency, etc. So the system can study and learn and extract all of the critical data. I might also add for in the direct material area, the data can also extract the actual individual line items if necessary. Now, although we've talked here a lot about handling paper, any solution you look at must be able to accept data in multiple formats. A percentage of invoices are delivered electronically, for instance. You've got XML, which is really EDI over the web, if you will. You've got the portals, the direct portal where a vendor can sign on to your portal, create an invoice. And, of course, you've got many companies are still using the more traditional EDI. So within your vendor base, you're going to have a mixture of companies, vendors, all using different methods. And to my knowledge, only one company has ever been able to totally get all these vendors to do it all his way and all in his strict invoice format. I believe that's the Disney Corporation. So when you're out there looking for a solution to automate, don't just look at a solution that says, yes, I'm the world's greatest scanner, or I've got the best OCR. Look for a vendor who's going to say, yes, regardless of what your vendor throws at me, I can process that and give you a single feed. So when you're looking for a software supplier, that's what you're looking for. You must be able to integrate it all, of course, into a workflow solution that can be from a vendor or in-house. So look for one that is all-compassing and handles everything. I think I've just covered most of that. Again, when you workflow, as much as you can automate as possible. The best process, of course, is to always have POs. Therefore, all the information is there for matching. And instead of that myriad many-to-many diagram that I had before, we now have a single diagram which shows you have suppliers with paper. In spite of all our best efforts, we're always going to have some paper, I'm afraid. We're going to have the PDF coming in as email, which in many ways is similar to paper. And then we're going to have the Internet or XML, and we're going to have EDI, file format. Excel is often used as a format for sending in data. Okay, another thing that trend is coming, and I've read about this and I've talked about this quite a bit, and that's the use of mobile devices for AP. And it so happens I was sitting at lunch at one of the sessions last week, and sitting next to me was a lady I've known for some years. She heads up the AP shared service for one of the global companies who were there, and she's on her iPhone. And I joked to her. I said, "You're up on Facebook." And she says, "No, I'm approving invoices." So she was sitting there at the lunch table in Florida, approving invoices coming out of Omaha, Nebraska. So I'd heard about it, but it's the first time I'd actually seen it live. Tablets and iPhones, portable scanners are all ideally suited for distributed organizations. All details can be uploaded direct to AP. Again, even from an iPhone or tablet, an invoice can be created and uploaded. As long as you've got a phone or Wi-Fi, we cannot escape from the office anymore. Okay, the benefits of sophisticated invoice data capture, elimination of paper. Now, one way companies are doing this, by the way, is to use an outsourcer to receive all the paper and send them a single electronic feed. It's also a very good way of handling it. Reduction of manual entry, of course, which speeds the process up, reduces errors, etc. Huge productivity increase. Processing times are decreased, of course, then eliminating the overpayments or late payments, and often escheatment, etc. as well. Strengthening internal controls, critical for companies that are utilizing SOX, or even those that are not SOX, have to be SOX compliant by law. Other rules such as OFAC, FACTA, etc. apply to all of us. Invoice validation is automated, and of course you've complete visibility from the minute a transaction enters the system until that transaction has been paid and cleared. I would like to turn this over to Dermot for the second section.
Okay, before we hand the presentation over to Dermot, we do have another polling question. All right, one moment. Okay, and this polling question reads, where is your area of greatest pain? Option 1, invoice capture. Option 2, invoice data extraction. Option 3, AP workflow. Or Option 4, ERP integration. I'll give the audience a few moments to answer this question. Okay, give everyone a few more seconds. Okay, and the results are up. Option 1, invoice capture, is 22%. Invoice data extraction at 20%. AP workflow, 40%. And ERP integration, 16%. All right, Dermot, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Jessica, and thanks, David. Lots of striking data and thought-provoking comment there, David. Thank you for that. And thank you all for joining us today. As you'll have heard at the beginning, I'm Dermot Macaulay. I'm with Koufax, and you may be familiar with us. I'll talk a little bit about who we are in a few moments, but we're very focused on as a business. In fact, it's just about the biggest thing we do is focusing on this question of data capture and extraction and the improvement of automation and flow in this area of invoice processing and accounts payable, one of the biggest focus areas for us. What I thought I would try to do here in the 15 minutes that I'm going to speak with you before we move to the Q&A session is offer some very practical thoughts on, and I thought given the topic maybe I'd focus on three things. And in these try to pick up on some of the remarks that David has made. First, I'm going to talk about imaging and data extraction and what I think you can do to make that really work in practice. I'll also, picking up again on a theme of David's, talk about the importance of capturing all invoices. We've recognized that paper is still swimming through all of our organizations. How do we use multi-channel capture to try to reduce the paper volumes even as we're dealing with the paper itself in a much more efficient way? And thirdly, I'll just finish with a discussion about how to connect the invoice capture more effectively to the workflow. Strikingly, in our poll question there, AP workflow, in fact, by 40% of the audience recognized as the biggest point of pain. So let me then move to talk about invoice data capture to begin with. And we've talked about paper, but there are many places and many channels and many formats in which invoices arrive in the organization. And it may be paper mail. It may be that you then put that through a production scanner to digitize it, or you may use a multi-function device in a branch office, or the invoice may arrive on your fax machine anywhere in your organization, not always in AP where you want it, but perhaps again in a branch office or in the office of the functional manager who ordered that particular part. Increasingly, we're finding that organizations are managing to persuade suppliers to send invoices as email attachments, and that can be good. It can often introduce its own challenges where, sadly, we find organizations printing email attachments on paper and then letting that printed paper flow through the organization. As David said, it is now true that mobile is having an impact, mobile technology, on invoicing and accounts payable, both in terms of capturing invoices, but also in terms of those approvals for the busy functional manager who's out of the office but still has a workload of approval and review tasks. And of course, we also know that there are some organizations who are to some degree accepting digital invoices in XML or in EDI formats. All these formats come in, and what I would argue is that you really need to be able to do a couple of simple things, irrespective of what format the invoices come in. I'm just going to step through those couple of things. Firstly, you need to create a digital image of the invoice. And given that 70–80% of invoices are paper, even if you stop the paper flow at the front door, you can be quite sure that all your approvals will still want to actually see a visualization of the actual invoice somehow. And so we recommend that you capture that image, and rather than having the paper flow, you allow the image to flow. So it flows in your AP workflow, and anyone doing an approval or other task can actually see an image. The second thing is you really must extract key invoice data, and David talked about some of that data, and you see some of it on the screen, some of the essential information. I'll talk more of that later. And once you have that digital image and the extracted data, you must very effectively make both of those things available to your AP workflow, because without them, the workflow breaks down, and also to your ERP system. Whether that's a third-party system or something you've built yourself, you really need to build your AP processes so that they interact very effectively with your ERP. But this single slide is what, in summary, what I think are the essential elements of a successful invoicing and AP process. But of course, the devil is in the details, so let's talk a little bit about some of those details. Here's a very straightforward looking invoice. And what you need to be able to do is reliably extract the data from the different segments of the invoice, the supplier data, the header data with invoice, date, number, etc. You also need to be able to extract line items. And at the bottom of every invoice, there's the amounts, including shipping, freight, etc. You need to be able to reliably extract that from the invoices of all suppliers. That's quite a challenge. And what we suggest is that it's such a challenge that you need to automate that extraction and be able to quickly learn for each new supplier the format of their invoices, because not every invoice is this simple. Let's take a difficult example. Here's a real-world example here, Koufax, an invoice we've received. Who is the supplier here? It's a little bit hard to say. Is it Mac Mall, PC Mall Business Solutions? What we offer is the ability to take all of that data off that invoice, then go off and integrate what we call supplier detection. We can integrate to your supplier tables and suggest back to you what are the likely matches with your supplier. So who might this invoice be from? And you'll see at the top where we say detected alternatives. In this case, we're saying with 57% confidence, we think this is from PC Mall Business Solutions, and here's their vendor ID. That intelligent matching is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, again, this is a point of failure in your AP process where your hopes of automation will fail and you'll end up back with manual processing. So it's absolutely crucial that you use this intelligent matching. And let's look at it in another context. Let's look at the line items I talked of earlier. Here's another invoice from Scorpion Bathroom Distribution. This time it's got 3 line items you can see on the image. And we've taken those 3 line items, we've extracted them, and I'm showing them in the blue boxes here. And this looks pretty straightforward, and we've got a PO number. What could go wrong now? Because let's face it, don't we have the PO details in our ERP? Well, here are some of the problems. The line item order could be different on the PO than on the invoice. The descriptions could be different. It could be that the item codes are different on the invoice than on the PO because the catalog we ordered from is out of date. Could be that the invoice spans many POs and vice versa, because we do lots of ordering with this particular supplier and they keep mixing POs on the same invoice, etc., etc. So the challenge there, again, it's an intelligent matching challenge tied to an accurate data extraction challenge. And those I would just focus on as two things to take away today. You must have accurate data extraction, and secondly, you must have a very intelligent matching. And failing to have this will push you back to that expensive manual processing you may be doing today. At Koufax, what we do in this circumstance is we'll automatically present you back with the invoice data line items, the PO data line items, even if it's a many-to-many match of invoices to POs, and we'll suggest the matches that look like they work. I mean, if we're confident enough and you're happy that 80% confidence in the match should be executed straight through, you can instruct the Koufax software to do that, and we'll automatically match with no human intervention. The end result is saved time, the avoidance of costly errors, and let's just round this section out by talking about what it is, what kind of invoices you need to be able to deal with. We see them as three: structured invoices, where the format's predictable and it's easy for the extraction through OCR to work. But many invoices are only semi-structured. You know what's going to be on there, but you don't know quite where that's going to be. Where is the PO number? It tends not to be always in the same place. And frankly, some invoices are quite unstructured, so that you can't really tell where the data is going to be. We at Koufax, we really lead the industry in being able to find and then accurately extract data on any invoice, whether structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. And also a powerful capability that I think you need to really achieve the kind of return on investment you'll need in an AP project. You need to be able to learn for every new supplier very quickly the format of their invoices, so that the next time you get one, you can extract without any human intervention all the data you need. And we have software that learns, so that if you have 3 sample invoices from your supplier, we can then automatically, with the 90% recognition rate that David alluded to, we can achieve that with only 3 sample invoices. We 90% of the time subsequently will extract the accurate information your then AP workflow can operate on. So that's some remarks on extraction and some of the key points I would suggest that you need to consider and that we at Koufax can help you with. I want now briefly to move to the question of capturing invoices from multiple channels. David's talked about how it may be a paper invoice, but it may also be an attachment to an email, or it may be an EDI invoice. What we suggest is that you need to be able to put in an invoice capture infrastructure that handles all of those formats and handles them in such a way that firstly, you do an excellent job of processing the paper, but that you also accept electronic formats very efficiently, and you offer all of those channels to all of your suppliers. Let's face it, the only way to get people who send you paper away from paper is to tell them that they can email it to you, or they can provide it through some other channel. And lastly, it's absolutely crucial, and we've seen people fail to accept this point and then get into expensive difficulty. You must have a standard process for dealing with the invoices after you've ingested them. You can't have a different AP process for paper invoices than you have for electronic invoices or emailed invoices. You must have a standard process, and that's where the standard workflow comes in. David's talked about mobile. I just want to talk a little bit about that, because I know from being out in the market and talking to people that some people are nervous about mobile. They don't know how to deal with it. And I wanted to address some of the issues I see. Firstly, people fear that if you have a mobile device and you use it to capture an invoice, well, you know, the quality of invoice or quality of images on mobile devices is poor. Not with Koufax, because my first point here is we have a patented technology that automatically improves the image quality, so that when your OCR then works, you'll have the same 90% extraction success as you would using any other scanning or extraction channel. Secondly, people care. I often hear people say, well, there's a big risk of fraud, so I don't want any mobile devices involved in my AP process. With the Koufax mobile capture capability, where we can use a tablet or a mobile phone to capture an invoice image, we don't keep the image on the device. That's quite a unique capability we provide, so that nowhere is any of this sensitive financial information residing on the mobile device of anyone. And thirdly, mobile devices can be expensive. And if you're taking photographs can be large. We again have a unique capability to compress the digital image that we're creating of an invoice using the mobile device. We compress it radically to minimize the bandwidth cost. So with our experience in the AP sector and with our leadership in mobile technology, we thought ahead about how to make mobile devices practically useful in the AP context. And so what we're able to do with those advantages is take the invoice capture process, which frankly, given what we said in the seminar so far, you're starting, I hope, to get the clear message that we can turn this into a highly efficient assembly line of invoice capture and extraction. What we're also able to do is make mobile devices part of that highly efficient assembly line. And we're able to do that without sacrificing any of the secure chain of custody you need around those financial documents. And to pick up on a point David made, we're also able to exploit the mobile device not just as a capture device. Essentially, it's a scanner in your pocket. But we're also able to use it as an approval device or a invoice review device in your pocket, as David said. So the real advantage of mobile, I think we all live today in the center of a mobile megatrend, and this is impacting accounts payable. And if you're thinking about making a business case internally for a project on accounts payable, think about the advantages to your organization of being able to have those functional managers who are not at their desks still execute the approvals and move the entire AP process forward. There's business benefit in that. So just before I close, I wanted to touch lastly on the three essential components of good AP. First is being the focus of most of today's discussion is let's do a better job of invoice capture and extraction and do it through multiple channels. Second, make sure that is well connected to a highly productive workflow. David's emphasized how important that is, and our polling question showed that all of you realize too that standard workflow is absolutely crucial in AP. And third, let's not forget the ERP integration is crucial because the person who will pay for an improvement in your AP processing is the CFO, and he looks at the ERP system as his single source of truth of financial record, and he wants your AP process integrated to that. Before we go to questions, I wanted to make a couple of points for those who may not be familiar with Koufax. We are a leader in AP solution provision. Over 1,000 customers across the world rely on us and on our large team of AP experts to implement AP solutions that work. And as David said, we can solve your problem whether you're dealing with paper only, whether you're dealing with multiple channels. It's a specialism of ours. And irrespective of the ERP system we can deal with that. And we have certified integrations to Oracle and SAP, the largest ERP systems in the market, but we also have multiple instances of successful integration to other ERPs. And I know when you listen to webinars like this and you have a guy like me talking for someone who's selling software, you tend to think, well, how much can I believe? Well, I'd like therefore to end on the independent voice of Forrester, who, as you see in their multi-channel capture wave, which is their evaluation of the leading vendors, Koufax is literally off the chart. there with the yellow circle. We're also a leader in what they call dynamic case management, and that is a sophisticated level of workflow automation. Again, we're a leader there. And what this practically means to you is that on the multi-channel invoice capture and extraction front, we at Koufax can deal with any supplier, any invoice, PO and non-PO invoicing, structured and unstructured, as I've said, and through any channel, and extract all information you need and do the intelligent matching I've mentioned. And in terms of workflow, we haven't focused on it in a big way in this webinar, but we have a very sophisticated workflow automation capability that ties into our invoice capture and extraction, and that also ties to our ERP integration capabilities. So with that, I'd like to pass back to Jessica to moderate our Q&A session. Thanks for listening. Jessica?
Thank you, Dermot. And just a reminder to the audience, to submit your questions, simply enter your question in the chat box on the left side of your screen and hit send. And we do have a question from Rob in Atlanta, Georgia. And his question is, paper-based invoices are still a major issue for most organizations. What practical steps can AP managers take to reduce the amount of paper involved in invoice processing?
Well, thank you, Jessica. I'll take that one. We talked about how it's important to stop the flow of paper at the door. So step one, digitize the image. And frankly, if that's all you do, that's a big advance. I would suggest that you also exploit OCR technology so that you extract the data. As David said, there have been huge advances in OCR technology, and you can, if you buy the right technology that learns as it goes, you can get very high recognition rates, even if it's off non-paper invoices that are arriving on email attachments. You can reach 90%. So I'd suggest that. The second thing I'd suggest to stop paper, consider offering electronic options. That could be a supplier portal, or it could be something as simple as allowing people to send you PDFs on email. At Koufax, we're a leader in multi-channel, and really stopping the paper at the door, I'd say, should be your first step. So thanks for that question, Rob.
Thank you. All right, we have another question from Patrick, and it reads, why can't more AP organizations make the business case to adopt better AP technology?
This is Dave. Let me try a little bit. I think historically, if you look at corporations, AP is viewed as an internal organization, and therefore getting resources, it often lags behind such things as sales and marketing, manufacturing, etc. I also think, and this is especially critical with medium to smaller AP departments, your ability to take a lot of cost out by taking headcount out is a bit more difficult than an organization like one I talked to with 12,000 employees in their paper handling side. What it needs is broaden the scope from just thinking of cutting costs per transaction. Look at automation. Look at the full automation and look at the benefits it can get from discount capture and from spend analysis. I think up on the Tappan website are some examples that have been in my previous presentations. Discount capture returns 36% on the money, and that's 1.5, 10, 30 net. You can take 10, 15% off your cost of goods sold or your total spend by doing discount capture. So I think if the organization looks at the broad picture of what automation can give, they then can give their CFO or their management a very, very good return on investment, a very short-term return on investment. Any comments?
I agree entirely. I think Dave very much agree with you there. You need to expand the scope beyond cost reduction. And one of the things I found useful is to ask our customers to go back for a year or 18 months and quantify the lost opportunity for early discounts that weren't taken, and the cost of late payment penalties that were suffered. Simply going through the exercise of figuring that stuff out helps build the case. And let's face it, when you're competing for investment money against the sales or marketing team or people who are generating revenue, you really have to come up with an economic value. And where headcount is usually pretty close to the bone already, you need to look for other ways to create that compelling business case.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have a question that reads, what kinds of controls does the OCR systems have in place to catch the 10% of inaccuracy?
It's more a case of when OCR reads a document and it can't understand it or has a problem, it substitutes question marks or otherwise ejects or advise the operator, for instance, that there's a problem, and the operator can very quickly correct the issue right there. I'd also like to back off and say I know organizations at the other end who I talked to one large one who they only pass through about 40% straight through, but that's part of their own internal processes, non-PO, etc. However, even that 40% is a 40% reduction and a tremendous savings. So there are many ways. Sometimes the OCR reads the document perfectly, but you still need to manually add tax information or other information. But regardless, the whole process is much faster, much more efficient than keying all of the data. In this case, you're either only correcting one or two characters that may be out or adding data that is not on the original document.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have a question from someone, and it reads, is invoice language an issue?
If you're meaning language as in multilingual, I've worked with clients in Europe who have multilingual invoices, and the machine can be taught to read the critical information, whether it's in English or in a foreign language. Again, these are things that the most sophisticated systems learn and can understand.
Okay. Yes, Dave, we, as I mentioned, Koufax operates in multiple countries in the world, and as a matter of course, our invoice capture and extraction technology comes with multiple language packs. So depending on your context, we certainly addressed precisely this kind of issue for global entities who, just as a matter of normal business, have to deal with different languages on their invoices. But you need to know you have that problem, I guess, is to make sure you know what problem you're trying to solve before you start, and then deal with someone who has an appropriate capability for your problem. Good question.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have another question that has come in, and it reads, how does Koufax integrate with the ERP? How does the invoice PO match work?
How do we integrate? A couple of different ways, and I see a bunch of questions here. I'm going to try and combine a couple of them. We have, for different ERPs, there are different methods of integrating. For Oracle and for SAP, we have a quite distinctive in the market solution that integrates in real time, so that throughout the AP process, we're integrating back and forth at every moment, and we're listening and sensitive to the ERP actions as well. And we've invested over a number of years quite a lot of our product research and development work into perfecting that, and it's well recognized as the best in class for the two prevalent ERP systems. For other ERP systems, we have we also have pre-built integration, and we have using our business process and workflow technology, we have an open integration capability so that we can, using web services, or if you have a homegrown or old technology, perhaps, if that requires scripting, we can do that if necessary. But we've got literally tens of thousands of integrations to different systems in our history, and so we're confident of being able to address the integration question. In terms of matching, I talked about intelligent matching, and again, we have patented technology at Koufax that deals with the fuzzy logic of how to match invoices that may have been typed incorrectly, so that the word on the page is never going to match anything actually, but it's going to be close to something that's on a PO that's in your ERP. We have patented fuzzy matching technology that will, as I showed on one of my slides, provide back to a human operator if necessary the potential matches, and will then give that human operator a very, very efficient way of choosing between them, so that even where you have mismatches and you need to have human involvement, we can make that human involvement highly productive and efficient. And again, it's a patented fuzzy matching that we can do.
Okay, thank you. And we have a question that's come in from Michael, and it reads, what is the method of extracting invoice information submitted as PDF attachments to emails?
Great question, and we hear this quite a lot, and PDFs come in a number of different types. So there's text, PDF with text on them, and there's PDF where there are images, and some are text and image. And we have a couple of different methods to extract that information. Firstly, I should just reiterate a point I made while I was talking earlier. If this is an invoice that is from a supplier that you've had 3 invoices from before, and you've used the Koufax technology, we will have learned that format, and so we'll be very quickly able to make an image out of that PDF and OCR that image in a way that will get 90% recognition. That's just part of the learning that we do, and that drives the efficiency of our technology. But there are also some invoices that are PDF invoices on email, where the PDF has text, and that text can in fact be directly read as text and turned into process-ready information for your workflow. So that we also have that second capability, so that in addition to the highly efficient OCRing we can do, we can also directly read PDF text and immediately turn that into system-ready information. So I hope that helps. If you have follow-up on that, we'd be happy to hear from you. We have plenty of experience in that area.
Okay, thank you. And we have time for one more question, and our next question from Laura reads, what amount of electronic storage space do you need, and what is a typical retention period?
Well, Laura, I'm afraid that's a little bit of a difficult question to answer, because it really depends on what volume of invoicing you're doing, and really it's down to the size of your business. We have not found that electronic storage is a constraint or an issue that is difficult for our customers to deal with. In terms of the issues that they find challenging, I would put storage capacity really close to the bottom of the list. And in terms of retention period, again, that is driven either by your internal policies or more likely by your regulatory environment, where you're required to keep documents for 7 years or whatever the period may be, depending on which country you're in. And there you're talking about records management systems where you can automatically have those documents stored and automatically then deleted after that retention period, which is something you might want to do. So,
yeah, and this is Dave. Let me just add to that many companies have a separate record retention process because records retention also includes everything that the business does. You've everything from personnel data, employment data. You've got all your AR side, your HR side. So many companies, utilize document storage systems. But again, as has been mentioned, the legal requirements are paramount. It can be up to 15 years for certain data. However, every company, and I always stress this when I'm working with AP organizations, every company needs a records retention policy that could be as low as 6 months to a year for emails, up to 15 years for certain financial documents, and that policy should be well written and understood and audited within the business. So again, you have legal requirements and you have business requirements.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave and Dermot. And that's all the time we have for today's program. If you were not able to ask your question or have any additional questions, please email them to amotuz@theapnetwork.com. That's AMOTUZ@theapnetwork.com. Please fill out the evaluation form so that we can better serve your needs in future conferences and to get your continuing education credits. That concludes today's conference, Invoice Data Capture, Key to AP Automation, presented by David Hay and Dermot Macaulay, and brought to you by the Accounts Payable Network and Koufax. Thanks for attending today's webinar. This webinar earns 1 CU credit for the Accounts Payable Certification Program and 1 CPE credit. Today's program is copyrighted 2013 by the Accounts Payable Channel, rights reserved. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.